He wanted a world without a god but ended up reincarnated by one, in a world where he has the power to summon and level up the strongest gods. Yukito is an ugly, disgusting loser who has his father as his biggest problem in life. His father, who looks like a Tekken 8 custom character, has always ruined his son's life because he's the leader of a cult of oiled up, bald gym bros who preach for a god called Mitama. Since childhood, Yukito had to face weird situations like playing with harmless capybaras, praying at the Niagara Falls, or getting a Joan of Arc treatment, which are all created by his father and ended up with him having no friends. However, the latest situation ended up becoming the craziest one. Yukito was walking home with his crush when suddenly his father's crazy followers kidnap him and put him inside a basket. The hairless gang then carried that same basket into a cliff's edge and tell Yukito's father that they had bought him. Yukito initially thinks this is just their usual weird stuff, when his father suddenly reveals they will go through the ritual of Musabi. They plan to put Yukito in the sea for 3 days and he'll come out as the new cult leader of the group. The men are all happy about it, but Yukito starts to panic, telling his dad that the Romans did that 2,000 years ago and it didn't end well. However, his dad gives him a thumbs up, forcing Yukito to give up and accept his fate. Before they toss him into the water, his dad comes over and tells him not to worry because some sort of plot armor will save him. He tells Yukito to pray to Mitama and ask to be purified and cleansed. Suddenly, Yukito's life recap flashes before his eyes, and it's not funny because he's basically getting cooked in those flashbacks. His dad assures him he's blessed by the sacred treasure, and then they all tell him, "Alright, see ya," before tossing him into the sea. Yukito realizes he never had a decent life and sinks to the bottom of the sea. He wishes is that if there's really a god, it should do him a favor and let him be reborn in a world without gods or religion. That way he can make friends and get a normal life. Yukito suddenly hears a girl's voice and then wakes up in a forest where a girl is basically playing Asu using his little Yukito down below. According to her book, it's a way to make a guy lively. But she panics when she goes too far, but that gives Yukito a moment of clarity. Now, in the village, Yukito is clothed and feeling better. The girl apologizes, but he reassures her it's okay and she should do it again. She insists on serving him until he's healthy and explains she works at a nearby eatery. Her name is Allurl, and as an apology, he can eat there for free anytime. With his dead eyes, Yukito looks around and thinks this fantasy world must be an Isekai story. Allurl is glad he's happy and thanks the book for helping her. Yukito asks her where the guild is and she looks confused. He explains it's an adventurer guild and Allurl nods like she understands. Yukito asks her to show him the place, happy that his second shot at life is in a world filled with swords and magic. However, she takes him to a field because he's not going to be like Naofumi. He's in the tilling of the farm hero. Yukito gives up, thinking this is a boring start as an adventurer. Suddenly, a guy named Roy approaches him and warns that all the girls in the village are his, and if Yukito lays a finger on anyone, he'll kill him. Yet Klen interrupts them and tells Roy not to hassle the newcomer. Klen introduces himself and offers Yukito a job. He gives Yukito a dagger, and Yukito takes it, expressing that a dagger is a classic starter weapon. He asks if he should start by vanquishing some goblins, but Klen asks him what the hell is he yapping about. Yukito proudly says he's ready, but once again, there's no adventure. There are only grapes, and he's there to harvest them. While harvesting, Klen apologizes, explaining that they don't have enough workers to bring in the harvest. Yukito still believes it's a test, thinking they are testing the new player with boring fetch quests, like gathering 50 melons or delivering a letter to some bozo in another town. He decides to put in his best effort. However, there is a problem. They harvested too much and don't have a way to preserve the grapes, therefore they will have to throw most of it away. Luckily, Yukito proposes to make wine with the extra ones. Later at the eatery, everyone is happy as they enjoy fresh wine. Roy compliments Yukito's idea and Cyril reveals that wine is usually expensive, but Yukito has helped them by making it. Yukito is really frustrated because he's not saving the world by killing the Demon Lord. He's stuck in some backwater place, the equivalent of European Cleveland, instead of fighting monsters and getting hot women in his party. Bro really thinks he's Rudius. He thinks about all the things he's done in the past month, working on the soil, taking care of animals, making wine, but nothing exciting from being reborn in a different world has happened to him yet. He's been doing nothing but Stardew Valley at this point. Allurl comes in, asking her sister Cyril for help with work. Cyril, enjoying her drink, finds it cute to see her little sister working. The sisters let Yukito stay in the eatery they both run. Yukito is okay with making some good friends, but as he drinks his wine, he vents, wondering where his alternate world life with swords and magic is. Yet on the next day, Yukito is working when a man suddenly runs out from the forest, yelling for everyone to run. There's a monster chasing the man. Yukito can't believe he's finally seeing a Rule 34 monster from Mappa's Blender experiments. Roy says it's a strange beast, but Yukito thinks this is a mid to late game monster. Roy tells him to leave it to him, pulls out a book, and starts waving his arms around. Yukito is happy, thinking Roy knew magic all along. Yet, after flipping some pages, Roy tells Yukito to run. They end up running into the forest, and Roy reveals they got lucky they didn't get hurt. Yet Yukito sulks, embarrassed that they got hurt from running away. He grabs Roy's collar, demanding to know why they didn't fight. Roy explains they had no chance against the beast. Yukito refuses to accept a world where they don't fight monsters and asks about the book Roy used. Roy says it's the Strange Beast strategy book with escape plans and first aid stuff. After returning to the eatery, Yukito realizes there's no magic in this world, and this is basically a lot worse than his life because aspirins haven't been invented yet. Siluril invites him to join for a drink, and while doing it, Yukito realizes that despite this world different from what he imagined, this life isn't so bad. Aluril tells him the village is happier since he arrived and shyly asks if he could stay forever. He agrees, thinking after all there's no demon lord in this world. Compared to his old life, he's grateful to God for this world. However, Yukito is shocked when Aluril asks what a god is. He is so shocked, he has to talk a walk and actually think about how this world works, especially since they have no magic, there are large beasts they can't fight, and there is no god at all. He wonders what would have happened if the strange beast had killed him. Spotting a dead animal in the forest, he picks it up for a proper burial. That's when he realizes he doesn't know how they bury the dead in this world. If there are no gods, what would be the most graveyard-like place in the village? He starts searching around but gets scared when he sees two silhouettes, but they turn out to be Aluril and Roy. Roy asks why he's out so early, and Aluril says she was worried since he wasn't in his room. Suddenly, Roy gets serious and asks Yukito if they are friends. Yukito is confused, but Roy then whispers that he's heard of a forbidden book and even mentioning it alone is dangerous. If anyone knows he talked about it, he might disappear. Yukito wonders if this might be the mystery of this alternate world. He asks what book it is, and Roy reveals it's a book about how to talk to women properly, disappointing Yukito. The three of them then go to the imperial capital, Yukito's first time being there. Aluril mentions their village is in a remote region of the empire. Yukito asks why she decided to tag along, but she just smiles. Roy points to a huge sphere, calling it the Imperial Palace, and explains everything, from farming to dealing with strange beasts, was taught by the Emperor. Roy also warns him to avoid talking to anyone from the city. Yukito asks why, and Roy explains that everyone hates people from their village. Yukito wants to know why, but Roy storms off after seeing the store they came here to see. While exploring, Yukito stumbles upon a public execution. He watches as the offenders drink lean for the first time, after which the guards announce them dead, concluding the day's end of life without any issue. Yukito wants to know what happened, but Aluril just pulls him away. She explains that their country has what they call an end-of-life system. When the country orders it, the person must accept that their free trial of life has expired and must uninstall themselves from the world. Aluril explains to Yukito that everyone is artificially born in this country. Once they reach a certain age, they get sort of adopted by a couple in the capital. She then tells him about her friend Cyan. She was still a young girl when she was adopted by a couple. They acted like her mother and father and took great care of her, making her happy. But then, one day the guards come and ordered for her father to delete himself. Shockingly, the father accepts saying a word. Cyan was confused and scared. She begged the soldiers not to take her father away, but they just pushed her aside. They asked her parents if she was rebelling against the end of life. To her surprise, the father told the guards to put her in a re-education camp. The mother also supported this idea, saying they tried to raise her well, but she was weird. They believed she was not fit for the capital and took her away to another village just like Alur's one. After listening to that story, Yukito still refuses to believe it and asks Aluril if they too will face the end-of-life fate one day. Roy just smiles, saying they're special and treated differently, so Yukito shouldn't worry. They decide to return home, but Aluril stays behind, hearing the crowd calling them filthy defects and saying they shouldn't come to the capital. The people want the country to get rid of the folks from their village. That evening, Aluril sneaks into Yukito's bed, saying she came prepared to give him some head after reading some techniques in a forbidden book. She holds a rope and a whip. Yukito tells her she doesn't have to and tries to push her away, but she ends up tying him up. Suddenly, she comes to her senses and apologizes, saying forbidden books are terrifying. She adds that maybe she was sent to the village because she was always like this. Yukito then asks Aluril more about their village. She explains that the village is like an isolation camp where horny people are sent. She shows him a mark that brands them as residents of the isolation camp. Anyone who fears the end of life or doesn't agree with the country's ways gets banished to the village. But she smiles, saying that despite not having a mark, Yukito doesn't look at them with disgust. He laughs with them, eats with them, and teaches them all sorts of things. According to her, no one from outside has been as kind to them as he is, and this makes her happy. Yukito says maybe it's because he was also disliked, and they are the first people he ever made as friends. Alluriel then comments on how pretty the stone around his neck is. Yukito's necklace was given by his father moments before being thrown from the cliff, who mentioned it was a protective charm from their cult. Somehow it also came with him to this world. He asks if she wants it and puts the necklace on her neck, apologizing that it's a cheap trinket. She's happy with it and thanks him. Then he tells her to go to sleep, and as she leaves, she looks at him once more, grateful to have met him. The next day, Yukito wakes and notices the eatery is closed. He steps outside to find a cooked-up Roy lying on the ground. He asks what happened, but Roy simply that the ops has done got him and that they took them away. He explains that the village is a dump for people the country has designated as weirds, and they are not instructed to delete their lives. Instead, their lives are forcibly taken. He sheds tears as he says that Alluriel and Siluriel will have their lives taken today. Yukito asks why Roy never spoils him the plot of the anime. Roy apologizes, saying he couldn't say anything because of Alluriel's feelings. Yukito decides to go save them, and at that moment, Clan appears with a carriage, offering Yukito a ride. Meanwhile, things just get a lot darker when we see Alluriel in distress as she watches her sister hanging out with the guards, and not in a good way. The guard prepares to end while she holds onto the necklace. She already accepted that she's cooked, just like her sister, when suddenly, Clan and Yukito arrive just in time. Yukito jumps from the carriage and starts throwing hands, knocking out the one that almost ended Alluriel. The remaining guards question Yukito about who he is, and he says he's the friend of the deviants they hate so much. He then sees Siluriel's lifeless body on the gallows and remembers her smile. He angrily questions the guards why the girls have to die. The guards prepare to attack when a man, the captain named Bertrand, steps in, answering Yukito that it's because they're deviants who fear the end of life. Yukito asks what's strange about fearing death, and the man replies that death is not something to fear. Meanwhile, the citizens watching the execution from above start murmuring that the end of life is basically their duty. They don't have umbrellas where they live. Bertrand then pulls out his sword, saying that the existence of the isolation camp is a sign of their emperor's mercy. Bertrand then slices Yukito, causing him to fall to the ground. Alluriel tries to run to him, but she also ends up being sliced at the back by Bertrand, causing her instant death. She didn't even bleed out. What the hell, man? Yukito, in disbelief, crawls to her lifeless body, questioning why everything is the way it is. He recalls his dad's words that the god Mitama will save him, but he doesn't believe that he or his dad deserve to be saved. Instead, the people of the village who lived honest lives and are kind to others are the ones who should be saved. He grabs the stone that fell from Alluriel's neck and then shouts that if Mitama truly exists, she should shave them. He holds the stone tight and recites the mantra of purifying to cleanse himself. The stone starts glowing, then flies from his hand into the raining clouds. The sky clears up and a little girl flies down with great power and stands beside Yukito. The guards get confused and ask Bertrand what's happening. Suddenly, the girl cheerfully hugs Yukito because he finally decided to accept her as his god Mitama. They're hugging, it's not what you think, but she's in shock when she notices Yukito's pale state. She starts to shake demands to know who hurt him while she wasn't there. Yukito tells her to use her power, and she begins turning into a dark aura, releasing an eldritch horror these have never seen in their life. She releases vines that grab Bertrand and the guards, swallowing them up as she plunges them into darkness. After dealing with them, she cheerfully skips to Yukito's side to heal him. Alluriel wakes up surprised she's healed, but confused as she sees this mysterious person on Yukito's shoulder, praising her and calling her cute while she's calling the cops on Yukito. Yukito still doesn't understand what's happening. He asks who she is, and she suddenly looks sad, saying how can he not know who she is? She claims to have been by his side more than anybody else in the world. Then, she claps his cheek and smiles as she introduces herself as Mitama, his god. Alluriel can't believe her eyes as she sees her sister and the others alive. Mitama brags about how she only meant to bring back Yukito, but ended up reviving everyone because she's too OP for them. Yukito wonders if she's really a god and sees everyone who saw everything walk away as if nothing happened. Back in the village, everyone is shocked to see them return. Ricky asks about their death and Siluriel smiles while admitting they were goners, but somehow they're still alive. Ricky tears up and suggests a drink to celebrate. They all head to the eatery for some wine, but Yukito feels devastated. Even though things worked out, he's worried about the imperial capital. They know that they're cooked if the Emperor's army suddenly shows up because he basically unleashes something they've never seen before. He wonders how he can protect the village because they're small and can't stand up against an army. The only hope they have is Mitama. Yukito turns to Clan and asks for more info about the country. Klen tells him the end of life was set up by the Emperor hundreds of years ago. Yukito's shocked it's been around for so long when suddenly Mitama leaps at him with such force that nearly knocks him over. Klen asks who Mitama is, and Yukito explains that she is from the same country as him. Yukito sits Mitama on his lap and asks about the miracles her power can do. Mitama proudly claims she can do anything because she's a great god. Yukito asks if she can beat an entire army. Our guy still can't believe he's with a god, even though Mitama basically revived everyone while swallowing some poor bastards who were just following orders. She grins and says she can wash them away with a giant wave. Yukito figures out that Mitama is really all-powerful. Yukito feels joyful because he actually reincarnated in another world with the ultimate cheat code, which is a pet god. Mitama confidently stands, eager to show off her power to Yukito. She unleashes her godly abilities on a cup of wine to multiply it. However, the wine doesn't multiply, instead, it just swirls around in the cup. Mitama gets confused and checks her follower stats just to find out she has 0 followers. She explains to Yukito that a god's power grows with more followers, and having none turns her into a useless kid. Without TikTok or Instagram, she can't really do pull an Ice Guy OG-san, because that's how you bought your followers. Yukito asks if having more followers makes a god more powerful, and Mitama confirms this. Yukito then declares that he will make her a god by creating the first religion in this world. His first recruit is Roy, who enthusiastically agrees to be a follower. Yukito then announces their plan to create a religion called Salvation through Mitama, with himself as the religious leader. He aims to recruit 10,000 followers before the upcoming army attack. Mitama predicts that with such a following, her power could reduce cities to ashes and split oceans in two. Roy becomes the chairman of the evangelism department and expresses his desire to spread Mitama's cuteness and her holy bath water. Yukito believes that performing miracles is the most effective way to gather followers. They can also try the Paul Atreides route, but that'll take 1,000 years to finish. However, the current Mitama is as useless like most of our viewers. He decides to start with a speech, drawing inspiration from his father's teachings on crafting speeches to scam people into becoming followers. However, Mitama dismisses the need for a speech, claiming she possesses godly wisdom, and she has over 80 million power in Rise of Kingdoms. She plans to use this wisdom to impress humans and force them to kneel before her. They set up an altar where Mitama sits, while Yukito and Roy kneel in front. This attracts the attention of villagers, and Yukito takes this chance to say that Mitama is a god capable of performing numerous miracles. She can revive the dead, send poor guards to another dimension, and she knows all about the past, present, and future. To prove their claims, Yukito decides to show one of Mitama's miracles. He begins to speak, detailing Allural's present relationship issues while acting possessed. Some locals are stunned, and Allural, both startled and terrified, admits to the problems. She wonders how Yukito knows, and she is secretly afraid that he has detected her love for him. Yukito gets forward confidently and informs everyone that Mitama utilized her supernatural powers to peer into Allural's heart and expose her emotions. Allural is astounded by this news, you can see because her melons started a fanservice. Yukito smiles, thinking it's working a technique he refers to as the Branham effect, in which fortune tellers say vague things that may apply to anyone, leading people to feel they're true. In short, this is a scam. It's an interesting psychological ploy to get people to believe in Mitama, but it doesn't work. Next, Yukito tries to persuade everyone that someone protected by Mitama's powers cannot be injured by a sword. To demonstrate this, Roy is confined in a box with sword holes, and Mitama, brandishing a sword, attempts to shove it through. But it backfires as she inadvertently stabs Roy. They decide to make Roy fly by placing him on the roof and carrying Mitama on his shoulder. Roy is terrified, but Mitama only smiles. Again, it fails and Roy falls to the ground. Bro Roy is getting cooked for no reason. They try to draw attention to Mitama by pulling an Oshi no Ko, but it doesn't work because of chapter 143. By the end of the day, they are exhausted. Mitama refers to herself as a crap and impotent god, and Yukito loses faith that anyone will join their religion. He understands how difficult it is to establish a religion, and he admires his father's accomplishments for scamming bald, buffed, and oiled-up men. He shouldn't have thought of him as a fraud. Allural bursts in, shrieking about trouble. Yukito is concerned that the Imperial Army has arrived, although the situation is not that serious. Allural brings in her pet, Chilchil, and mentions that it may have ingested some anti-pest poison. Yukito suggests taking it to the vet, but Siluril sadly explains they don't have animal veterinary in the world and that the Imperial capital won't help non-human lives, and they themselves lack the medicine or knowledge to treat Chilchil. Siluril comforts Allural, apologizing to Yukito for the inconvenience, but emphasizing how important Chilchil is to them. As the girls patiently wait for their pet to pass, Yukito and Mitama burst in. Yukito holds some herbs, mentioning that he made Mitama help him find them, hoping they might act as an antidote. They make a medicine, and Yukito feeds it to Chilchil. While waiting for it to recover, Mitama praises Yukito, saying his former self wouldn't have cared enough to do something kind like this. Yukito agrees, stating that he's changed, and if there's anything he can do to help, he wants to do it. Though it's too late for Chilchil because you can see the poor animal change textures from 2D to 3D as it coughs up the medicine and its eyes start closing, leading Allural and Siluril to cry, begging for it not to die. Mitama, inspired by Yukito's words, steps up and stretches her hand, enveloping the animal in a ray of light. They're shocked to see the pet open its eyes, fully recovered, and now looks it's from a Nintendo Switch game. Mitama reassures them that Chilchil will be fine. However, to their surprise, Mitama now looks like a wrinkled old woman. She explains that she used the power of Roy, the perverted follower, to help them, and that's the most she can manage at the moment. The girls express their gratitude to Mitama and Yukito. Mitama starts to glow and checks her stats, finding out she now has 3 followers. Feeling rejuvenated, she says she can use quite a bit of power now. Yukito is amazed and asks if she gets this much power from just a few followers. Mitama says it's not normal, speculating that Allural and Siluril might have some special ability. Yukito begins to think that the way someone becomes a follower might affect the amount of power Mitama can use. For example, the girls became followers after witnessing Mitama's godly powers, unlike Roy here, who we should call the Child Protective Service immediately for gushing over her. Mitama laughs, declaring she's no longer a crappy or impotent god. She vows to show the fools who refuse to revere her the extent of her powers, starting with Allural and Siluril. Yukito urges her to calm down and not rush into anything. Allural interjects, saying she has a favor to ask. The group gathers outside, and Allural has a special request for Mitama. She wants Bertrand and the guards brought back. But Yukito asks her what the hell is she thinking, because he's pretty sure the guys hanged her sister and killed them before. He questions why Allural wants them back, and she explains she thinks they were just doing their assigned job, not because they wanted to. Siluril adds that having more buddies for drinking would be fun, despite these buddies hanging you in the past. Also, Mitama could protect them just in case. Yukito knows they'll have to face the Imperial Army soon, but he still thinks it's risky to bring back someone as dangerous as Bertrand. Mitama decides to free the guards, unleashing them from their prison. As the smoke cleared, a female voice screamed about being defeated by a mere child. Yukito, confused, asked who she was, and she revealed herself as Bertrand. Damn, Mitama really cooked him so bad, he turned into a hottie. Feeling ashamed and teary, Bertrand asked them to just end her because he ain't gonna want to be a part of Yukito's harem. With everything calmer, Bertrand talked with Yukito, standing in a sword stance, ready to draw her sword at him and blaming him for her misfortune. Yukito accepted that because of him, she couldn't return to the capital as an Imperial Knight, and she hadn't unsheathed her sword because she hadn't received an order from her liege. Yukito praised Bertrand for her loyalty, but he emphasized that the Empire had thrown her away, and now she's gonna be part of his harem. Bertrand was reluctant to accept it, but Yukito insisted, telling her to admit that the Empire discarded her. Finally facing the truth, Bertrand took a proper stand. Yukito offered her his hand, asking her to join their group and promising to create a place for her to stay. This shocked her, and she blushed before agreeing. Why is bro blushing though? She realized the Empire would never accept her, and since Yukito saved her, she wanted to repay the favor. Meanwhile, the villagers worked in the fields when one of you guys appeared from the forest. Damn, y'all ugly. They decided to run since they didn't stand a chance. Ricky, however, stood his ground despite others telling him to run. Luckily, Yukito arrived with Mitama to save the day. Mitama declared she would unleash her ultimate weapon, a sword she created called the Godly Blade. She dropped it beside Ricky, ordering him to use it against the approaching beast. Ricky took the sword and charged at the beast, but it knocked him away. Bro really thinks he's Thorfinn or something, it's crazy. The sword turned out to be rusted, and Yukito scolded Mitama for not knowing that a sword submerged in an ocean for too long becomes useless. Mitama argued that legends said it was powerful, but Yukito regretted counting on her because the legends didn't mention something called rust to her. As the beast got closer, they screamed because of how one of you guys are, only to be saved by Bertrand, who appeared and stabbed the beast on the head, stopping its attack and landing in a cool way afterward. Damn. She's stacked though. Mitama was thrilled to see Bertrand, praising her as her 4th underling. Bertrand calmly instructed everyone to stand back as she handled the charging beast. The beast came at her, and she unleashed the power of her sword, covered in electricity, slicing through the beast effortlessly. Bro really cooked the beast so hard it turned into a beast Wellington. Yukito and Mitama were shocked at the incredible power she possessed. Bertrand sheathed the sword, declaring it was over and asking if that's what they wanted. Everyone was relieved to be saved, but Yukito noticed the sword changed and was no ordinary weapon. He brushed it off for now, expressing satisfaction that Bertrand had done what he expected. Yukito began preaching about the power of their religion's holy knight, Bertrand, and everyone was amazed. Yukito was pleased to have found a powerful ally in Bertrand. He preached that if they joined their religion, the holy knight would protect their fields from strange beasts. The villagers were unfamiliar with the concept of a religion because these poor sods are just farmers. Mitama started boasting that a religion was where they worshipped her as a god, but Yukito covered her mouth and explained that they should think of it as a group with loose ties, and Mitama was like a mascot they called God. Since the villagers didn't know what a mascot was, Yukito used Chilchil, the animal in the eatery, as an example. He convinced them that if they became members of their religion and loved Mitama as their mascot, they wouldn't have to fear strange beasts anymore. The villagers all agreed, and Yukito was glad they were making progress. Olurel tries to entice people to join his group by informing customers that they can only access wine if they become premium members and buy the religious battle pass. Bro really made the first ever pay to win religion. The customer agrees willingly, and she expresses gratitude for their cooperation. When others overhear this, they decide to join as well. Yukito is pleased with this, as it aligns with his cunning strategy to gain followers. Yukito presents a special fridge resembling a large pot, known as a Zir pot, to the new recruits. He explains that they can keep their food fresh by placing it inside. Silurel adds that joining the group will entitle everyone to receive a pot for safeguarding their food. Meanwhile, Roy feels extremely tired as Yukito has been making him work tirelessly for 3 days without any rest. Bro really looks like he's been working for Mappa for the last 6 months. Yukito even assigns him the task of making 20 more pots by the next day. Even when Mitama tells Roy she will make him work until he drops dead, he takes it as a compliment and works even faster. Yukito bakes some edible cookies to lure more people into joining. Olurel instructs them to write their names on the religion list to receive a cookie. Then Yukito utilizes Mitama's power to provide a hot spring treatment as a bonus for new followers. Mitama gains 107 new followers, and she is genuinely happy about it. Yukito informs Mitama that their success is not solely due to her charm. In a world where there's no concept of gods and religions, it's challenging to scam people into joining their cult. However, he points out that it's easy to convince them because they lack strong feelings against religion. He just needs to present it in a different way. When Mitama asks what he means by a different way, he explains that the followers shouldn't be bound together by deep devotion. Instead, they should focus on personal gain. For instance, in exchange for their belief, promising to heal them, share food, and protect them from enemies. This way, they can attract more followers by offering benefits that are easy to understand. However, he lacks precise information on how many followers they need to become strong enough to stand against the Empire. Yukito decides to summon Bertrand to gather information about the Imperial Army. To his surprise, he sees her in a cute maid outfit, literally accepting that she's made to breed. Ignoring her attire, he inquires about the number of soldiers in the Imperial Army. Bertrand is shocked that Yukito is focused on numbers, explaining that the strength of the Imperial Army lies in the Archons, a small elite unit directly controlled by the Emperor. When Yukito asks if they are stronger than her, she admits she's nothing compared to them. Bertrand goes on to elaborate that Archons possess a special power bestowed by the Emperor, and rumors suggest that each one is strong enough to erase a mountain. A scene shows an Archon in the forest effortlessly defeating a strange beast with a powerful blast. Meanwhile, Mitama is enjoying her cookies when Yukito interrupts and asks if she can erase a mountain. Mitama jokingly says she can erase a mountain of cookies, but Yukito insists on a serious answer. She claims her powers easily surpass the mountain gods in Japan, but reveals that she needs 10,000 followers to perform such a feat. Yukito becomes disappointed as they only have around 100 followers. Mitama laughs, thinking Yukito is impressed, but he concludes that she's useless. Yukito goes to meet Bertrand, who is dressed attractively. Bro literally accepted his fate and forgot he used to have a rod of his own. She starts panicking, thinking he's making a move on her. Blushing, she waits nervously for his next move, thinking that Yukito will put his sword in her sheath. However, Yukito surprises her by pulling out her sword and examining it, declaring it's just an ordinary sword. She kicks him, retrieves her sword, and asks him what he wants with it. In pain, Yukito explains that she defeated a strange beast with the sword, but he can't understand how it could cut through something so big so easily. He asks if there's a trick to it. Bertrand decides to demonstrate, standing in front of a large boulder. She says the word emanate as she unsheathes the sword, powering it up. With a slight swing, the sword effortlessly divides the boulder into two, smashing it to pieces. Yukito is astonished. Bertrand assures him there's no trick, he just doesn't know how to use the sword. She claims there's nothing the sword can't cut through. Yukito compares it to a magic sword and eagerly asks where they can buy more, thinking it could help them stand against the Imperial Army. Bertrand explains it can't be bought. It's granted to those above a certain rank in the Imperial Army by the Emperor and imbued with special power. The nature of this power is only understood by the Emperor. Yukito gathers the religion's admin committee, but it's just him, Siluriel, and Klen. Siluriel wonders why it's only them, and Yukito says it's because they seem like the smartest ones, and that includes this little animal Chil-Chil, who's just chillin' like a villain. Yukito shares that the village is in danger, and Klen confirms that the Imperial Army might be coming, while Siluriel thinks they're just observing. Yukito insists the army will come anytime soon, so he asks if there's a way to move the whole village and send it to Brazil or something. Klen warns that making a big move will get them crushed instantly. Yukito wishes if they had 10,000 followers things will be easier, but Siluriel points out the village only has 2,000 people due to an empire rule limiting the population in isolation camps. Yukito asks what she means, and Klen explains that there are many isolation camp villages around the imperial capital, seen as trash cans for people the empire deems a Twitter user. Klen then meets Yukito privately, asking if he has a plan to conquer the capital. Yukito admits he doesn't have a solid plan, but he has over 9,000 hours on Civilization 4 and knows they can achieve a religious or cultural victory. Klen thinks it's a good idea since their freedom is what sets them apart from the capital. Yukito is happy with the response and, after smacking his face, declares he'll try his plan of taking the village 500 years into the future through technological advancements. Guy's gonna pull a science victory before doing anything. A month later, Yukito surprises Klen with his strong confidence in obtaining 10,000 followers. Klen questions, how's that possible with only 2,000 people in their village? Yukito explains to Mitama that their religion doesn't have a fancy god or founder, and Mitama, who is present in the room, dislikes that statement. Yukito continues to say he's broadening their followers by bribing them into becoming believers, but he needs to expand their scope. Siluriel asks what he means. Yukito smiles and says they're going to use Mitama's powers to take the village into the future. He tells her they are counting on her. Mitama gets emotional because Yukito finally believes in her. Mated him. Roy uses the tractors to plow the fields in front of the villagers. The villagers are confused because Roy's 2D textures are high definition, and Yukito says it's Mitama's godly tool. He announces that those who follow Mitama can use these godly tools. Everyone agrees, but Mitama is on the ground feeling tired. Yukito laughs evilly, telling her to begin producing tractors, implements, and fuel for everyone, basically skipping the farming tech tree and moving to production. Everyone's excited except for Mitama, who's tired from using her powers. Mitama is feeling great again, with her followers now at 927, and she's thrilled that everyone is recognizing her greatness. Yukito is curious about what comes next, just as Siluriel comes back with a bucket of water. Unfortunately, Siluriel trips, spilling water all over herself and complaining that now she's just a generic girl used for fan service. Yukito smiles, having another idea. He introduces a sink with a tap, astonishing Siluriel with the easy access to water. Yukito claims that water is a divine protection and they will bless each believer's home with it. Soon, they invented electricity and everyone celebrated. Roy praises the lights installed by Yukito and Mitama. The villagers are happy they can now enjoy drinks into the night. Yukito takes Klen and Bertrand to a cliff, showing them the illuminated village. He calls it premium living, like playing cities, skylines, something mankind has used to thrive over others. While Bertrand finds the view impressive, she notices someone on the ground dying, who is Mitama after being exploited for her powers. The next morning, they already have over 2,000 followers, and Mitama is filled with more power than ever before. Yukito announces that they have made every person in the village a follower, but he reveals that all this was just preparation for the next step. Suddenly, Roy bursts in with bad news. A little girl has cooked and put blur sensors on Bertrand. Yukito wonders who the enemy is, while Mitama is still screaming from overflowing with power. Yukito rushes to check on Bertrand, who is half-conscious. He asks what happened, and she explains that the little girl is an Archon sent to destroy the village. Yukito sees the named Adder, who claims the isolation camp violates the Assembly's will and will be wiped out. However, Mitama interrupts, declaring that she, as a god, will show Adder her power as she's the one that set the rules. The Archon fires a huge blast, but as the smoke clears, Mitama is surrounded by rocks unharmed. Mitama confidently asserts herself as the rule, shocking Adder. Yukito, on the other hand, can't believe the Archon shot a beam, and Bertrand explains that's the power of an Archon's weapon. Adder is stunned, wondering what stopped her attack, as mere boulders couldn't withstand her power. Mitama counterattacks by creating shadow plant jutsu from the rocks and sends them to Adder. Adder blows one away, as the others charge at her while she's trying to understand what kind of beings they are. Bertrand is shocked that Mitama can stand up against an Archon head-to-head. Even though they seem evenly matched, Yukito is worried for Mitama since she only has 2,000 followers. Adder continues firing at the plant beings when one from underground grabs her cannon hand. The remaining beings leap into the air with their weapons, smashing Adder, and Mitama finishes it by creating a mouth to swallow them. Yukito and Bertrand are shocked, and Mitama, happy with her success, runs to hug Yukito. However, it's not over, and the plant's mouth cracks open as Adder blasts the face into smithereens. The Archon levels up, now with multiple cannon hands floating around her. Mitama prepares another attack feeling confident, but she's used much of her power. She decides to end it quickly by creating huge snake plants and sending them towards the Archon. However, Adder easily blows them off with a single blast. She then declares that she didn't want to use her full power, but they leave her no choice, intending to wipe out the whole isolation camp as she prepares a large cannon blast. Yukito is scared at the legendary level of this power. Mitama is scared too, realizing she's basically cooked after using all her powers, angered at the idea of losing to a little girl. Yukito calls out to her, saying she's their last hope. Fortunately, this gives Mitama a little power, and Mitama reluctantly admits that it's annoying she has to borrow their powers, but Yukito is counting on her. Mitama surprises Yukito by cheating and borrowing the power of all the gods, manifesting many god hands. As a primordial god, she claims all gods and their weapons are at her disposal. She even borrowed Gilgamesh's lore. It's crazy, bro. A clash of god weapons and cannon blasts ensues, both sides pushing for a moment until, unexpectedly, all the god hands decide to leave. Mitama is scared and sad that they left just when the fight was starting, and that's because they found out she's not famous enough. However, the blast intensifies and then explodes into an Adobe After Effects, leaving Adder badly wounded. Mitama is on the ground and Yukito calls out to her. She apologizes, crying that she couldn't be of help to him. Yukito goes to comfort her but remains wary of Adder, who is a bit wounded but still floating in the air. Adder, angry at her failure, unleashes a blast towards the village to erase everyone and everything. As the blast expands towards Yukito and his friends, who have huddled together, Yukito watches, disappointed that he couldn't do anything to save them. But then someone snaps their fingers and the blast disappears and fades away. Everything that seemed burnt away is restored, as if by magic. Everyone is shocked by this, and Adder wonders what happened and then concludes it's an illusion. She turns to see Klen, who tells her that it's enough. Adder, now recognizing Klen as Loki, says she didn't recognize him in that form. Loki teases her, saying she's getting slow if she didn't recognize her in human form. Confusion still lingers among everyone. Loki clarifies that there is no man named Klen, appreciative of how they treated him so nicely as if they knew him. He undoes his illusion, revealing his true form and introduces himself as Loki, one of the main Archons. Damn, this anime is so peak. They turned the guys into hot women. Bertrand realizes that Loki had infiltrated the village to monitor them. Adder asks if Loki betrayed them and demands an explanation from him, preparing to blast him depending on his answer. However, Loki materializes away and reappears behind Yukito and Mitama, telling them both that the time is right and they should go assassinate the Emperor. Surprise fills Yukito as he watches everything unfold. Adder asks Loki why she's discussing assassinating the Emperor, which only heightens Yukito's astonishment. He wonders if Loki is aligned with the Emperor, but she declares her readiness to assist Yukito because of his desire to dismantle the Empire. Accusing Loki of betrayal, Adder prepares to unleash an attack, but Loki outwits her with an illusion, swiftly stabbing her from behind and restraining her with a box-like device. Yukito and the others stand in shock as they witness Bertrand, also handcuffed, rolling on the ground. Instructing them to follow, Loki leads them to the heart of the Imperial capital, where armored knights, resembling statues, stand guard. She guides them to a massive door, revealing it as the entrance to the Emperor's chamber. Upon entering, they find themselves in the throne room, with the Emperor seated on his throne. Loki signals for them to approach. Slowly passing the guards, Adder rushes to the throne, kneeling before the Emperor, admitting failure in eradicating the rebel camp and allowing insurgents to confront him. The Emperor commends Loki and Adder for their efforts. Yukito is taken aback when he lays eyes on the Emperor. Addressing him directly, the Emperor seems to have been anticipating his arrival. Feeling stunned, Yukito prepares to defend himself. The Emperor reveals his awareness of Yukito's plans to revive God and reintroduce religion. Lost in thought, Yukito is surprised by the Emperor's knowledge of God, a fact known to few. Growing bored with the Emperor's discourse, Mitama yawns and notices a distant pillar. While Yukito is still contemplating, she shatters the pillar, jolting him back to attention. Observing that the pillar may have been affecting everyone's behavior, she reveals that he and Adder have been conversing with a deceased individual all along. As holographic projections in the room begin to fade, a black sphere with red wires is revealed. Screens emerge behind and around the throne. Loki grins, remarking that she knew Mitama would unravel the truth swiftly. While ascending the stairs to the throne, she tells Adder and Yukito that all they've seen was fake, created by the room's machines. She kicks the old Emperor's skeleton off the throne, causing it to crash down the stairs with the head rolling to Adder's legs. Adder is too shocked to speak, staring at Loki, who casually occupies the throne. Loki reveals the truth, stating that the Emperor passed away long ago, and the Empire has been governed by the room's machines set up by the Emperor before his demise. She confesses she's been monitoring them for years, but still doesn't fully understand how they operate. Loki elaborates that these machines analyze and regulate everything, from the Empire's finances, food, and populace to natural phenomena. She dubs it the Assembly, stating that the country has been under its control for a long time, longer than they can think. Adder remains profoundly surprised and struggles to believe Loki's words. Yukito begins to connect the dots, realizing that the entire Empire was under the Assembly's control. He thinks these machines surpass the technological level of his previous world. Yukito continues to think deeper, and Mitama explains to him that he's thousands of years ahead in the future compared to his old world, which has already been destroyed. Yukito is rendered speechless. She continues, revealing that civilization destroyed itself, and a handful of intelligent survivors erected a new civilization to avert a similar fate, abolishing belief in all deities. Yukito is frightened by this revelation, grasping Mitama's shoulders and urgently asking what the world has become. Mitama advises him to calm down and identifies it as Ashihara no Nakatsukuni, which equates to Earth in Yukito's terms. She transported Yukito far into Earth's future. Unable to process everything, Yukito panics. He repeatedly questions Mitama about why she brought him here, and she responds that it's because he wished for it. In a flashback, Yukito's father's religious followers throw him into the sea, causing him to drown. Mitama explains that finding a time in history with all the situations Yukito wished for wasn't easy. She excitedly asks if she did a good job, her eyes shining like a star. Yukito sadly realizes that the gods had played him all along and laments the terribleness of all gods. Loki signals Mitama to break all the machines in the room, intending to destroy the Empire. Adder questions her decision, wondering why she would do that since the Archons were born to serve the Empire. Loki tells Adder she wants the act to end. Just as Mitama is about to wreck the machines as Loki asked, Yukito tells her to wait. Loki faces Yukito, but he surprises her with a kick to the face. She narrowly dodges, grabs a knife, and rushes at him. Yukito grabs her hand before she can stab him, disarms her, flips her to the ground, and holds the knife to her neck. Yukito shares his theory, saying the Archons can't use their powers in the throne room or around the Imperial Palace. He also points out the previous illusion wasn't Loki's doing. If she could use her powers, she wouldn't need to bring them all the way to the Imperial Palace. Yukito questions Loki about her goal and why she's trying to destroy the country. Yukito strikes the knife on the ground beside her face, leaving a cut on her cheek as she gives a vague answer, hiding her true motive for destroying the Empire. Leaning over her, just above her head, he looks into her eyes, still holding the knife against her face, and demands the truth. Loki explains that a real god can't be fooled by her illusion ability, and the Archons are similar to gods. They gain more power with more followers. She believed that with her powers, she could destroy the Empire. To test her hypothesis, she went to different isolation camps, demonstrated her powers to gain more followers, and as she got more, she could use powers she normally wouldn't. She goes on to say that the Archons were built to resemble gods, having similar traits. Yukito confronts Loki, asking her if she wants to play God. She responds that she doesn't want to play God, but aims to become a real one. She shares her plan with the other Archons, and they agree to it. Loki suggests destroying the palace, surprising both Yukito and Adder. Yukito agrees immediately, surprising them even more. Yukito tells Loki that a world with free will isn't so bad and instructs Mitama to destroy the palace. He throws the knife at the throne as Mitama punches the place, breaking the dome above them. The noise grabs the citizens' attention and they worry about the Emperor's safety. Loki tells Yukito that a new age of gods is about to begin as chaos engulfs the world again. Yukito disagrees, saying nothing has changed and he'll make Mitama the sole god. He dismisses the other Archons as fakes, stating that they will be unable to win against a real god. Loki leaves Adder with Yukito, unable to use her powers as the capital's machines have been destroyed. She tells Yukito to do whatever he likes with Adder. Yukito calls out to Loki as she walks away, vowing to protect the village at any cost. Loki responds that she would also do whatever it takes to become a god. Approaching Adder, who is still upset and wonders why she is still alive, Yukito tells her she can sulk, but it won't bring back the Emperor or the Assembly. In a fit of rage, she blames him for destroying everything. Yukito explains that if he hadn't, they all would have been killed. Adder breaks down crying and clings to Yukito's shirt. He comforts her, saying there is still hope. Adder looks up in surprise. He promises to help her defeat the other Archons so she can rebuild the Assembly. Yukito points out to Adder that the Archons possess unique and diverse powers. If she collects all these powers by defeating the other Archons, she could achieve near omnipotence and recreate the system with the Emperor and the Assembly. Adder asks Yukito why he's helping her, and he replies that the other Archons are his enemies too. He admits he doesn't know why but can't ignore a crying little girl. He hugs her tightly and she thanks him, crying against his chest. Reflecting that, despite being archons emotionally, they are no different from children, making them easy to manipulate, Yukito spoon feeds at her, asking if it's delicious, and she replies positively. Alluril spies on them, thinking she was right about Yukito being a lolicon. Yukito calls the people of the camp and announces to them that their faith now has two deities, Mitama and Atter. He explains to them that both Mitama and Atter are both their gods, as they did not understand what he meant by the word deity. Mitama is shocked by this and confronts Yukito, asking him what he meant by the statement. Just as she is confronting Yukito, a counter appears above her head, showing the number of followers she has. The same counter appears above Atter's head. She had gained more than half the followers Mitama originally had, causing Mitama to lose half of her original followers. Yukito signifies to Atter to try out the powers she gained from gaining followers. Atter ties a ribbon on her head before releasing a powerful blast of energy from her hands, which travels across a river and disintegrates a boulder. Mitama celebrates as she gains over 1,000 followers, putting her at almost 3,000 followers after the integration of 3 other isolation camps. She stops celebrating as she glances over at Atter, who has 300 more followers than her. Riki bursts into Yukito's presence, interrupting his contemplation, and urgently informs him about a peculiar beast attacking. He warns Yukito and the others that Roy is in peril. Roy, carrying a girl, desperately evades the strange beast, but is nearly trampled. Just in the nick of time, Atter unleashes a blast from her hand, puncturing the strange beast and bringing the situation under control. Yukito quickly approaches with Mitama in his arms, expressing concern for Roy's well-being. Roy assures him that he's fine, but the girl he carries is severely injured. Approaching the mysterious girl, Atter commends her skilled movements and instructs her to stand. The girl, introducing herself as Gaia, one of the main archons with the power to control strange beasts, asks about their religious group. Yukito inquires about Gaia's intentions, and she reveals a desire to discuss something crucial. Gaia explains her predicament, being attacked because she couldn't control the strange beasts. In a later scene at the eatery, Mitama mocks Gaia for having only 2 followers compared to her 3,000, asserting that Gaia should worship and obey her. Yukito engages in a conversation with Gaia about her struggles with controlling strange beasts due to the lack of followers. Gaia discloses that she was attacked herself and expresses a desire to crush Loki, who initiated the conflict among archons. She suspects Loki has a winning plan and insists on crushing her soon. Yukito and the party head to the capital, encountering an unexpected massive wall. Yukito ponders its purpose, and just as Mitama prepares to use her power to break it, Gaia advises against it. Gaia proposes an alternative solution and reveals her ability to create strange beasts, leaving Yukito perplexed by her dual power of both control and creation. Just as Yukito was about to finish stating how dangerous Gaia is, she completed the creation of the beast, a small, cute bird made from mud. This surprised Yukito, causing him to cut himself short, realizing she was completely drained from making that one bird. The bird soared into the air, surpassing the height of the wall, only to be instantly shot down by a green laser energy beam. Yukito and the party looked up in astonishment at the bird being brought down. Gaia explained to them that the moment they cleared the wall, they would be under immediate attack. A humanoid figure leaped down from the wall and landed in front of Yukito and the party, pointing a sharp blade at them, warning that all attempting to enter the capital would be eliminated. The figure turned out to be Bertrand, but claimed not to be Bertrand, introducing itself as the Black Knight Bertrand. Suddenly, Bertrand fell to the ground, her katana slipping from her hand. Yukito cautiously grabbed the katana from the ground. Bertrand pouted and whimpered like a baby, expressing a desire for everything to end. Loki appeared beside Yukito like a ghost, instructing them to take Bertrand away as she found her annoying. Yukito, surprised by Loki's sudden appearance, plunged the katana into her neck, beheading her. However, the head and body disintegrated, reappearing far behind them, laughing and stating that Yukito was too impatient. Loki questioned Yukito about why he was at the capital with Mitama, Gaia, and the rest of the party. Mitama proudly declared to Loki that she was not a reject and had over 10,000 followers. Loki countered, revealing she had over 1,120,000 followers. Yukito laughed, expressing his surprise at Loki having so few followers. Everyone, including Loki, was taken aback by Yukito's statement as he walked back, announcing they were heading home as there was no need for further reconnaissance. Yukito called out to Loki, warning her that if she had foolishly attacked them, she would have been beheaded. Smirking, he drove away. Back at their base, he warns them that foolishly attacking Loki would have resulted in all of them being dead. Alluril is taken aback by the bluff Yukito has just pulled. Yukito expresses his surprise at the unexpected number of 1,120,000 followers and considers it a miracle that they were able to escape. Yukito instructs Bertrand to share the situation inside the capital since she was there and is the only one they can rely on. She explains that after the Emperor's death, the capital lost order, but when Loki entered the Imperial Palace, the people began behaving orderly again, as they used to. Bertrand agreed to guard the gates in exchange for information on Loki's plans, but despite numerous inquiries, she couldn't learn anything. Yukito asserts his belief that Loki is acting as the Emperor, using her illusion power on the entire capital. This revelation surprises everyone, realizing that the entire capital is trapped in an illusion created by Loki. Yukito points out Loki's mistake, emphasizing that the number of followers she has isn't hers, but that of the Emperor. Everyone is shocked by this revelation, but Yukito sees it as an advantage they can exploit. He emphasizes that it's not a game, but a psychological war, and encourages them to strike with this newfound advantage. Yukito assigns tasks to everyone in the room. Bertrand hides in the back of a truck, tailing and observing Gaia's actions. She emerges when Gaia stops at a house in an area not supposed to be affiliated with any isolation camp villages. As Gaia opens the door to the house, several children greet her, calling her mother. They express concern about her being late again. Gaia apologizes, citing her busyness, and heads inside to prepare dinner. The children offer to help, she agrees, and expresses her gratitude. Bertrand reports her findings to Yukito, detailing everything she observed. Yukito concludes that this is Gaia's religious group, the smallest possible form of family. He explains that each family has its rituals, with the head being the leader and a strong bond between members. Yukito emphasizes that a family is a religious group in itself, citing that in the town he used to live, many great religions started as family religions. He believes they need to swiftly crush Gaia, proposing that the fastest way to deal with a family religion is to depose the leader and absorb the members in one go. Yukito discusses with Dakini the plan to steal Gaia's followers by making them fall in love with her. He stresses the importance of preventing children from being used as tools for religion, stating that exploited children will end up being discarded. To avoid this, they must not treat the children like tools. Yukito, Mitama, and Dakini confront the children. The children demand to know who they are. Mitama introduces herself as a deity and the others as underlings. Yukito tells Dakini he wishes she had brought all the children, but she insists he should return her followers first. Reluctantly agreeing, Yukito states they will work on the two and reform them both psychologically and physically. One of the children aims a bow at Yukito, and just as he prepares to retaliate, the ground begins to shake. Mitama informs Yukito that they need to leave the forest when Gaia emerges from between the trees, accusing Yukito of causing trouble. Mitama urges him to run, but instead he confronts Gaia, warning her not to attempt anything deceitful within their group. He asserts that even if she gains followers, they will simply take them away. Gaia laughs, declaring that there is no going forward, it's the end. The ground cracks beneath them, releasing a gust of air and covering the entire forest in a strange fog. Looking up, Yukito spots a massive, serpent-like strange beast named Typhon, a mobile biological fortress with powers surpassing that of an Archon. Typhon chases Yukito and his party through the forest. Adder stops and fires a blast at one of Typhon's numerous heads, momentarily slowing it down but causing no damage. Typhon retaliates with a blast from one of its mouths, which Mitama blocks with roots, exerting her power to defend the group. Yukito instructs Mitama to bow her head to seal away Typhon's power. She dismisses it as a crazy idea, pointing out that Typhon's original god doesn't understand words like Dakini. Yukito emphasizes the need to escape, but Dakini questions how they can outrun the monster. As the monster draws near, Cyril and Aluril arrive in a truck, crashing into Typhon. They urge the party to get in, claiming they've come to save them. Everyone boards the truck and they drive off. With the monster still in pursuit, Cyril presses buttons in the car, shifting it into overgear and moving at full speed. This allows them to dodge every attack from the monster as they drive away. Unable to completely evade the monster, Aluril accelerates so hard that it causes the speedometer to spin and fall off, propelling the truck into supersonic twirls. Finally, they manage to escape from the monster and drive away. Adder asks Yukito about the strange beast, and the child beside her reveals that it's Typhon, the strongest strange beast his mom could create. Typhon emerged from underneath them, revealing its full body, which was a few times more massive than the ones that originally chased them. Aluril kept driving away to avoid it, causing the truck to tumble a bit, making some of the kids fall. Yukito saved the kids who almost fell off, but ended up falling from the truck himself. He was instantly impaled through the stomach by a tentacle of Typhon. Mitama jumped out of the truck onto Yukito's almost lifeless body, promising to heal and save him. However, the tentacles started retreating into the mouth, and Yukito, along with Mitama, was then swallowed by Typhon. Yukito woke up, hanging from the wall with an unconscious Mitama on the ground. He saw blood everywhere and came face to face with Gaia in a different form, her combat form, causing him not to recognize her. Gaia explained that they were inside the body of Typhon, which strangely resembled that of a luxurious castle. She informed Yukito that he couldn't die, having tried to kill him about 300 times, yet he kept coming back to life, seemingly revived indefinitely by Mitama. Looking at a screen showing Typhon moving towards the capital, Yukito questioned Gaia's chances of winning with such a low follower count. Gaia asserted that she could win as long as she had Typhon with her, planning to destroy the other Archons one by one. She then asked Yukito if he knew the world before the Empire existed, explaining that Archons were half-human biological weapons created before the Empire existed by tampering with the human body. Gaia revealed that most Archons had lost their memories of that time, but she retained hers. Her mother had turned her into the god of a community that wanted to live alongside nature, rather than technology, using her as a tool for wealth and power. Gaia ran from her mother and destroyed her mother's community. She told Yukito that all Archons shared a similar origin story based on their nature. Gaia accused Yukito of smelling like her mother, calling him trash that exploited and deceived people. Yukito denied it, but she challenged him to honestly say if he hadn't been lying to the people around him. Reflecting on his actions in both his past and present worlds, Yukito lashed out at Gaia, accusing her of being the same as him. Gaia agreed, saying they were cut from the same cloth due to tactics implanted by her mother. She expressed hatred for the so-called gods, irritated that Yukito and the other Archons were trying to revive the world of gods, and declared her intent to destroy it all while strangling him. Alurel and the rest call out to Yukito, expressing gratitude for him and Mitama saving them time and time again. They declare that it's now their turn to save them. They gather a crowd of followers, playing a song and hosting a festival for Mitama. The cheers from the crowd make Adder stronger, prompting her to pass her guitar to Bertrand and instruct her to take over. Adder flies upward at Typhon and sends out a blast, destroying several of its heads. Dakini fires a blast at Typhon, making it attack itself. As some of the heads are about to fall on the stage, Adder destroys them. Just as everyone begins to celebrate, Typhon regenerates its heads and fires at the crowd. Mitama, boosted by her followers, squeezes out her remaining power and uses it to stop Typhon in its tracks. Yukito calls Gaia over and headbutts her. Mitama suggests a way for them to win, proposing that if Yukito becomes her believer, she would gain enough power to instantly kill Typhon and anything else in a flash. Yukito agrees, asking Mitama to free him from his current situation. He promises to genuinely follow her if she does. Mitama frees him, telling him to become her believer. However, Yukito deceives her, kicking a table at Gaia and causing her to fall on the ground. Attempting a suplex on Gaia, Yukito is sent flying to the ceiling by a tentacle that pops out of Gaia's stomach. Adder takes the stage, urging her followers to transition over to Mitama. There are arguments in the crowd, but Adder convinces them, explaining that Mitama would protect and care for them. Mitama gains the followers from Adder, boosting her powers and allowing her to break free from her shackles. She forms a golem from the roots to battle Typhon. Yukito launches an attack at Gaia, getting his arms blown off. They regenerate almost instantly, and he grabs her by the neck. Gaia punches a hole in his stomach, making him step back for a moment. However, he punches her in the head, sending her to the ground. Yukito informs Gaia that as long as Mitama heals him, he will ignore whatever damage he takes. Mitama confronts Gaia for damaging Yukito's body. Yukito grabs Gaia by her waist, slams her onto the floor, and she transforms her arm into tentacles, attempting to strangle him. As Gaia is about to stab Yukito, she gets stabbed in the back by a branch from Mitama's plant summit. Gaia explodes, causing Typhon to also explode. Mitama and Yukito fall to the ground, and Mitama reaches out her hands to Yukito as they land safely. Adder and the rest of the party meet them, and the children go over to where Gaia is and lean over her. She tells them that if they want revenge, they should take action, as she is injured and unable to do anything. One of the kids walks over to Gaia to stab her, but another child stops him, catching the knife with her bare hand. She begs him not to kill her, and he drops the knife on the ground before walking away. Gaia reminisces about her past as she lies on the floor. Mitama's followers celebrate and party, with Dakini serving as their DJ. Adder takes a spoon of ice cream, suggesting that instead of Dakini or Mitama, ice cream should be worshipped. Yukito informs Gaia that he will be keeping her and the children under their watch. To ensure she doesn't do anything suspicious, he assigns Kai, one of the kids, to watch over her. Yukito points out to Kai that he likes Cyan, another child whom Gaia took care of. Mitama teases Gaia, claiming that she is now one of her underlings, but Gaia playfully teases her back. Loki shows up at the scene to congratulate Yukito. He asks her if she is responsible for Mitama's follower count. She responds by saying that having Typhon attack the capital would have been very annoying for her. She tells Yukito that she used her own power to transfer a part of her followers to Mitama. Yukito warns her not to underestimate him, saying she's feeling like a god who moves pieces on a chessboard. Loki assures him that she does not underestimate him at all and admires his abilities more than anyone else. She disappears without a trace, as if she had never been there. Alurel and Seiril walk up to Yukito, who is staying by a lake. They recount their experiences since they met. He assures them he would protect the village no matter what. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.